Welcome to today's show. My name is John. As always, you can subscribe to the show on iTunes or follow the links to social media in the podcast show notes. So please subscribe when you're finished listening. You can also go to snarkymoviereviews.com to read notes, bios, and other random movie thoughts. Today's movie is Crime of Passion, 1957. This classic film noir was directed by Jared Oswald. It has an amazing cast featuring Barbara Stanwyck, Raymond Burr, Sterling Hayden, and King Kong's love interest, Fay Wray. Eddie Muller, in his introduction to this film for Noir City, called it a proto-feminist film where boredom drives a housewife to murder. But I think it was more like blind ambition. One of my favorite things about this movie is that it is a very different type of story. The plot is different and takes the viewer down an unexpected path. Okay, let's jump right into the veteran actors. Actors.
Right, and I'm a Shakespearean actor.
Barbara Stanwyck played newspaper reporter Kathy Ferguson, later Doyle, and femme fatale par excellence. The wonderful Stanwyck was covered in episode 37, The Violent Men, 1955. Raymond Burr played police inspector Anthony Tony Pope. Burr was covered in episode 115, The Blue Gardenia, 1953. Fay Wray played the wife of the inspector, Alice Pope. Ray was covered way back in episode 1, King Kong, 1933. Royal Dano played police captain Charles Alitos, the heir apparent to the inspector's job. Dano was covered in episode 15, The Undefeated, 1969. One of my favorites, Jay Adler played Mr. Nallance. Adler was covered in episode 38, 99 River Street, 1953. Stuart Whitman had a teeny-tiny role as a ballistics technician. Whitman was covered in episode 16, Night of the Lepus, 1972. Sterling Hayden played Police Lieutenant Bill Doyle. Hayden is the real deal, as you will see momentarily. Hayden was born in Montclair, New Jersey in 1916. He grew up living along the eastern seaboard. He attended prep school at Wassakeag in Maine. At age 17, he ran away to sea. He worked a variety of jobs, including shipboy, doryman, seaman, and fireman. By 19, he was captaining his own ships. During this time, he sailed around the world several times. Around 1940, at the urging of his friend, Hayden met with producer Edward H. Griffith and eventually signed with Paramount. His first two films, Virginia 1941 and Bahama Passage 1941, came out prior to World War II. However, Hayden joined the forerunner of the OSS to become a commando and later joined the Marines under an assumed name. It wasn't for the above that I said he was the real deal. It is because during World War II he ran Nazi blockades to smuggle guns to Yugoslavian partisans and parachuted into Croatia for commando work. That's real Guns of Navarone 1961 stuff. Following the war, Hayden went back to acting. He had briefly been associated with the Communist Party, and he was called before the House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC, and named names. He is said to have regretted this deeply. He made so many great movies, I'll just try to hit a few of the highlights. He played Dix in The Asphalt Jungle 1950, a tale of robbery gone horribly wrong. He was the sheriff in Suddenly 1954, where three assassins hold a family hostage as they wait to kill the president. He was Johnny Clay in The Killing 1956, another robbery that goes horribly wrong. Of course, he was General Jack D. Ripper, the person that started all of the trouble in Dr. Strangelove 1964. He was Police Captain McCluskey before Michael Corleone killed him in The Godfather 1972, and he was to play Quint in Jaws 1975, but was stopped for tax reasons. Oh, by the way, I skipped all of the westerns. His last acting was as abolitionist John Brown in the Blue and the Gray miniseries 1982. Hayden died of cancer in 1986. Virginia Gray played wife Sarah Alitos. Gray was born in L.A. in 1917. Both of her parents were in the movie business, and she started at the age of 10 in Uncle Tom's Cabin 1927. She did a few movies, stopped for a few years, and then returned for adult roles. She worked her way up with bit parts as dancers and such until she was regularly working in B-movies. Some of her better-known films are Another Thin Man 1939, All That Heaven Allows 1955, The Rose Tattoo 1955, and The Naked Kiss 1964. Her last acting role was in television in 1976, She died in 2004 at the age of 87. Gail Bonney was cast as Mrs. London. Bonney was born in Ohio in 1901. She had almost 200 roles in film and television. However, she is best known for Crime of Passion 1957, Flying Saucer Daffy with the Three Stooges, and Herbie Rides Again 1974. You remember Herbie, the love bug, a Volkswagen Beetle with a personality? She died in 1984 at the age of 81. Story.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
At the San Francisco Post newspaper, reporter Kathy Ferguson, Barbara Stanwyck is a superstar. However, she clearly doesn't get the respect she deserves. Her editor, Mr. Nallance, J. Adler, sends her to report on the search for a female murderess in the Dana case. At the same time, he manages to insult her copy and has no regard for her personal time.
The Dana woman wanted to Los Angeles for the killing of her husband. Police take out a bus. She's shacking up here with a bison gunner named Geralda. Two LA detectives flew in and smoked this Geralda out last night.
And the woman?
Not yet. You hustle down to headquarters, see the Los Angeles law. Whip up a woman's angle on the Dana babe. You know, I killed him because I love him. I love him because I killed him. You know, the regular dose of Ferguson schmaltz.
Tomorrow morning?
Now, composing room.
Mr. Nallance. Mr. Nallance, there's a hole on page 10 waiting for my copy.
We'll fill it in with some of that cornball from last month. Nobody will know the difference.
The reporters wait at the police station, but the two Los Angeles detectives that have come down for the case don't treat the reporters with the respect they are used to receiving. Police Captain Charles Alitos, Royal Dano, and Police Lieutenant Bill Doyle, Sterling Hayden, come in and tell the reporters that they will give them something when they pick the suspect up. Kathy, not one to be pushed around, says they have a job to do as well. Alitos says her job should be cooking supper for her husband.
I'm Captain Alitos from Los Angeles. I'm here with my partner, Lieutenant Doyle, to do a job. We were sent by the Los Angeles authorities to find a woman wanted for murder. Not to give interviews to the press. When we found her, you'll hear about it. That's all.
Just a minute. You have your work to do, we have ours.
Your work should be raising a family, having dinner ready for your husband when he gets home.
She locks eyes with Doyle after the insult. Kathy takes the insult from the LA cop as a challenge. She begins writing letters in the newspaper to the murder suspect, one woman to another. Mr. Nallance doesn't even listen when she presents her copy. A montage, beginning with Doyle, then women in all conditions are shown reading the paper and feeling great sympathy. Before long, she gets the call from the murderer. She calls Alitos and Doyle and tells him that she has been contacted. Alitos comes in with a heavy-handed attitude and threatens to have Kathy arrested. Kathy gives him a fake address and Alitos leaves Doyle behind to watch her. Doyle is a lot nicer. Kathy says that she gave Alitos a fake address and he can have the arrest himself. Doyle is a straight arrow and immediately calls Alitos back. Doyle and Kathy start doing a little flirting and find out each other is single. He asks her out for dinner and she happily accepts because he's a manly man. At dinner that night, Kathy says she has no interest in getting married. When Doyle tries to find out why, she says the police mind is working. He denies this, but she confirms that the policeman may be off duty, but his mind is always looking for crime. A shot of two candle flames show how hard the pair is falling. The couple stay together right up to the point the two policemen load Dana on the airplane for Los Angeles. Doyle says murder starts down in the heart and not in the head. Before they part, Kathy says she likes him, he is a nice guy, and he probably won't get very far. Sometime later, Kathy quits her job for one in New York. She really gives Mr. Nallance the business about disrespecting her work. On the way out, she gets a call from Doyle. He says he can have her ticket rerouted so she can visit him in Los Angeles before she goes to New York. They meet at the airport and in the next clip are getting married by a justice of the peace. Alitos is at the wedding, as is his wife, Sarah, Virginia Gray. Doyle takes his new bride to their modest house in the valley. I guess that's where the Karate Kid lived later. Kathy then starts questioning Doyle about who he is.
Happy marriage, Bill.
Happy marriage, darling. It wasn't much of a wedding, was it?
Best I ever had. Who are you? Who are you? I know your name, your age, where you work, and what you do, but I don't know you. What do you dream about? What are your favorite colors? What music do you like? What kind of a little boy were you? How many times have you been in love? No, don't answer that. I don't want to know.
You know, the kind of stuff you talk about on a second date. Kathy says she is devoted to taking care of Doyle and keeping him happy. They go into the bedroom and the scene fades to black. I notice there's a picture of the flower carrier by Diego Rivera in the bedroom. This picture was on the wall in the movie In a Lonely Place, 1950. Popular photograph? Doyle gives Kathy a tour of the police station, including a mention that Inspector Pope is the big cheese. She files all the information for later use. Next, Kathy and Doyle host a party for the police squad and their wives. The men and women are separated, and the comments of the women are banal. Oh, he's a wonderful man. Oh, the chief likes him so much. And a lot of kissing up to Sarah Alitos. The men are meeting in the kitchen, and all of the talk is about retirement and pensions. When Kathy tries to join the only slightly more stimulating conversation, her remarks are ignored. Later, Kathy and Doyle meet for lunch. Doyle sits down and tells how he broke a case. No sooner does he finish talking than a detective comes in to get him because Inspector Pope called Captain Alitos, and Alitos didn't know about it because it was another's work. They demand Doyle report immediately to Alitos. Kathy is left alone. They have another party and the ladies are clustered around tiny sandwiches while the men play poker. Sarah cannot keep from mentioning her and her husband's relationship with Inspector and Mrs. Pope. All of the other ladies gush at the friendship. Alitos is even the boss of the men at the poker table. Back with the women, Kathy hears about a news story where Alitos was praised by Inspector Pope for the case that Doyle solved. When she hears Sarah and Alitos are going to the Pope's anniversary dinner, she can't stand it anymore and runs out sick. Later that night, Doyle wakes up and Kathy is sitting in the dark smoking. Sounds like a plan is being hatched. She rages at Doyle when he tries to help. She hates her new life as a mindless housewife and her husband being a suck-up to the boss. She screams about his lack of ambition. Next, Alice Pope, Fay Ray, walks out of her large house and drives away. Kathy watches from a car parked across the street. The next day, the same thing. It's good advice to avoid patterns as it protects you against assassination. On the third day, same thing, but this time Kathy swerves in front of Alice and crashes her own car into a pole. In the post-accident briefing, the presently shaken Kathy mentions where her husband works.
Awful, you'll have to be towed in.
Oh, that's all right. I'm just grateful I didn't hit you.
My house is right here on the corner if you'd like to use the telephone.
Well, that would be very kind of you. I'm supposed to meet my husband for lunch.
Oh, of course, but I'd be happy to drive you to him.
Oh, no, that would be too much of an imposition. I'm to meet him downtown Los Angeles, police headquarters.
Police headquarters?
Yes, he's a detective in the Central Division, Lieutenant William Doyle.
Well, now, this is indeed a strange coincidence. I'm Mrs. Anthony Pope. My husband is inspector of that division.
Alice picks up the bait and they become friends. This gets Kathy and Doyle an invitation to the anniversary party. Sarah can't stand that they are there, and Alitos knows that he has been outmaneuvered. Kathy is left alone with Inspector Tony Pope, Raymond Burr. Since the police mind is always working, he questions her about why she was on this side of town when she was heading downtown.
Really had a very narrow escape, you know. Might have been seriously injured.
It's my own fault. I cut the corner instead of making a proper turn.
Well, that happens. Especially if you're trying to cut corners. You were supposed to meet your husband for lunch?
Uh-huh.
I understand you live in the valley, Mrs. Doyle.
And so, what was I doing on the other side of town in Westwood? Isn't that the next question?
No, it's not. I think I'll save that question for another time. Time, perhaps, when I might really need it.
By that time, Inspector, I should have a very satisfactory answer.
He tells her not to answer and says he will save that question for later. Tony really likes her because she is sharp and because reporters and detectives do the same type of work. Except for the guns. Alice and Kathy are BFFs and are hanging out. Alice mentions that she has not been feeling well and her and Tony are going to Palm Springs for his birthday weekend. Kathy inserts herself as host of a surprise party before the trip. She calls all of the important people on Alice's list and starts making her ends. Her big break comes when Sarah Alitos calls to invite Doyle and Kathy to rideshare to the desert birthday party. Sarah finds that Kathy and Doyle weren't invited. Kathy knows that the party has been canceled. She doesn't mention that the party was moved to Saturday in town. Kathy only asks Sarah if she can change her plans. Lying by omission. At the party, Kathy reports to Alice that Sarah just couldn't change her plans. Kathy is the hit of the party and is meeting all of the right people. Kathy ends up outside with Tony, and he sees right through her tricks with the Alitoses. Tony says a woman like her needs more. He tells her about a special file he has with strange offenses. She meets Tony at his office and loves reading the file. She gets closer to Tony. Tony says he and Kathy are the same type of person. She says she is looking for an escape from time to time. Is this the beginning of the affair? It's not really clear. Maybe they're kindred souls. Later, back at Kathy and Doyle's house, Doyle tells how Alitos has been riding his butt for every little thing. She tells him she wants him to quit Los Angeles and go to Beverly Hills where it's easier. He agrees to do it. At lunch the next day, Doyle says he tried to resign, but Tony asked him to talk it over with Kathy, and he is thinking about making Doyle his assistant. In his new job, Doyle is traveling all of the time. I guess Kathy is spending more time with Tony, but this is not shown. Kathy is shown laying a note out on the dresser. It never tells if she wrote it or if it was real, but she clearly sets it out for Doyle to find. She then pretends to be asleep. Doyle is happy to be home, but when he finds the note, he goes nuts as the note says she has been running around with Tony. Kathy finally lets out that the note came from Sarah Alitos. Doyle storms down to the station and busts into the room where Alitos and two other detectives are sitting working on a case. When Doyle storms into the room, Alitos goes for his gun. Doyle smacks him in the face and the gun comes out during the fight. The other two detectives break up the fight. Doyle makes a threat of murder before he leaves. Tony calls all of the men in the next morning. Alitos is marked up pretty good. Tony controls the testimony in favor of Doyle. When the detectives say Alitos was reaching for his gun, it all goes against Alitos. Tony asks Alitos why he would expect Doyle to attack him, and he is stumped for an answer. Doyle talks to Tony in private and tells about the note but not Tony's involvement. Tony brings Alitos back in and says he will drop the issue. A paper is shown that has Alitos being assigned to another division, and Doyle has taken over Alitos' job as Chief of Central Homicide. Sometime later, Kathy is at home alone. A car pulls up and the doorbell rings. Tony is at the door. She makes him a drink and asks what's wrong. He says Alice is ill and is in the hospital. Tony says Alice can't take the pressure much longer. The doctors say she needs a complete release from tension. So do I. Tony says he is going to retire to spend a few good years with Alice because he owes her that much. Kathy is worried about her scheme. She moves in and nominates Doyle for the job. Tony says he might be a choice. She then jumps on him and lip locks him. Kathy calls Alice at the hospital. She finds out that Alice and Tony are leaving the next week. By the way, she's in the largest hospital room ever, complete with a sitting chair and a table. Kathy then calls Tony and tells the operator she is his wife. He has not been accepting her calls. He says he will meet her in a bar. Tony comes into the bar where she is waiting. He says he doesn't feel good about what he did because of Doyle. He says Doyle is not ready for the job and he is not putting him in. He is selecting Alitos, who now hates Doyle.
Tony, you can't do this to me, not after you...
Loud. Now listen to me. Ever since that night, I've been sick. I don't like what I did because of Bill. All right, it happened. I'll figure it is my fault, but that's the end of it. That night, anything happened, anything said, the end of it. You follow me?
You're not putting Bill in for the job.
I'm not putting Bill in for the job.
But you promised, Tony, you promised.
Pillow talk. I've got a responsibility to the department. I won't sell that out for something we both stole. Bill's not good enough for the job. He just isn't. That's all there is to it.
Who is your man?
Charlie Alitos.
She fades into a hazy, drunken stupor. The way this is shot, I'm not even sure Tony showed up. Later, she is preparing breakfast for Doyle, and she is in a snot. That night, he and Kathy go to the fight, but she is not being any fun. He gets a call and has to go to work. Kathy comes into the police station with Doyle. The detectives have two hopheads that have been robbing drugstores. There are two guns on the evidence table. Doyle goes into the interrogation room and Tony comes by and ignores Kathy. She snatches one of the guns off the evidence table. Bad chain of custody. Doyle has to stay, so Kathy says she will drive herself home. She drives straight to Tony's house, and when he drives in, she follows him to the house. He gives her a hard brush off and she starts yelling, so he lets her inside. She begs for some justification for herself. He calls her out on causing the car wreck and beginning the whole thing. When she has had enough, she pulls the gun and shoots him through the head. She drives home, just beating Doyle there. When he pulls up, she strips and jumps into bed. Before long, the body of Tony was discovered and Doyle was called back out. The couple passionately kiss before he leaves. Doyle puts everybody on 24-hour duty until Tony's killer is found. Kathy hears the news of the killing on the radio. The ballistics technician, Stuart Whitman, shows Doyle a photograph of the bullet that killed Tony. Doyle takes the photograph and commits it to memory. He calls Kathy and she pretends to have just heard. Doyle tells Kathy to go stay with Alice, and she looks as if this is the first time she remembered Alice. Doyle wakes on the couch in his office and seems to know the truth. He goes back to the lab and shows that the gun used in the drugstore robbery is the same one that killed Tony.
No, the other gun. Pope was killed by the other gun.
When he goes to the property room, there is only one gun in inventory, and it's not the one that killed Tony. Doyle grills the arresting officers and the desk sergeant. They don't have any answers. Doyle has another aha moment. Doyle drives back to the house where Kathy is waiting. He asks her what she did with the gun, and she replies, "I love you."
What'd you do with the gun, Kathy?
I love you, Bill. I'd do anything in the world for you.
You killed Tony Pope, Kathy. Why couldn't you just leave it alone?
She then confesses to the murder. She rages and says she killed Tony because he wouldn't promote Doyle. He says he is the same cop he has always been. Doyle drives her to the station and walks her to the booking room. This movie is the last of many film noirs from Barbara Stanwyck and Raymond Burr. They both left the genre on top. Stanwyck at 50 moved to television, as did Burr. World famous short summary: I love you, cutie, but police work's my duty. I hope you enjoyed today's show. You can find connections to social media and email on my site at snarkymoviereviews.com. There are links in the podcast show notes as well. Remember, this show is completely free and independent. All I ask is that you jump over to iTunes and give me a review. It really helps the show get found. Beware the Moors.